I really do wish that the last memory of me watching the Eagles in a Super Bowl isn't going to be of Patrick Mahomes pointing late in the fourth quarter and a flag being thrown and us losing by 3 in Super Bowl 57. I hope we get to another one someday and win another one someday. That just wouldn't be very optimal if that's the last memory I ever have of a Eagles team in a Super Bowl. That would kind of suck. But it seems like a long way away. Obviously, last season ended, with confetti falling on the Chiefs and the Eagles, not winning Super Bowl 57 because Pointy McPoint had the point to the referee. And but it is what it is. This season, a whole nother story. A whole nother story. And oh my goodness, you must give me time for this one. This final episode of Season of the Fan, Philadelphia Eagles, Season 10, ends in bitter fashion. This was oogly. This was as... I've seen seasons where this team has been horrendous all year. 3-win, 4-win, whatever, 2-win, whatever it was. Andy Reid's last year was terrible. Chip Kelly's last year was terrible. There were some other seasons in there as well that were what are we doing kind of years where you knew there had to be change. And we got change. We got change and things turned around, right? Doug Peterson's last season, where they kind of threw the game against Washington to the chagrin of the Giant fans, who were upset about not missing out on the playoffs in like a 5-win season or 6 wins or whatever the hell that was that year. For God's sakes. Well, you know what? In an 11-win season, the Eagles didn't belong in the playoffs either. And I know there's much debate right now about, what do the Eagles have to do? Do you move on from Nick Sirianni, the coaching staff, or not? Do you just get 2 new coordinators and hope that fixes everything? I don't believe it will. Listen, coaches, to coach in the NFL is a privilege. It's a privilege. And listen, this team under Nick Sirianni's watch has made the playoffs 3 times in 3 seasons. 2 of those 3 seasons, they got boat raced in Tampa Bay. Now, the first year it was Tom Brady who did it. Okay, we can kind of... But now you just let that happen to Baker Mayfield, who that team couldn't score a touchdown against Carolina the week before. And I know it's a week-to-week thing. Don't just look at what happened the week before because it can be completely different, and I believe in that too. But this team was not ready. They look like the team that ended the season, and people were saying, there's a flip that can be switched. There's no flip that's going to be switched. When you play like that terribly at the end of the year, there's no switch that's going to be flipped. This isn't fantasy world, right? This isn't a Disney movie. There's not going to be this great turnaround change, and here we go, and now we're going to go on a run. That's just not how it works. You can point to some other teams that had, so-so seasons and then win this, like, the Giants, the Packers, the Steelers as wild card teams. But those teams ended those seasons with some hope. Even the Giants. I remember the first year when the Giants won the first time against New England. They played them at the end of the year and they almost beat them. And I know it was a meaningless game really for both teams as they were already in. But the Patriots were going for the perfect season. And the Giants almost got them. And that gave them hope. And they wanted to play that team again in the Super Bowl, and they made it to the Super Bowl, and they beat them. They had hope because of how that season ended for them, even in a loss. Just how they played with passion and pride, and almost winning that game in the Meadowlands against the unbeaten Patriots. I mean, those teams showed that they had hope. They had great players. They had coaching. They were the teams that were going to go on runs. The Eagles were not. The Eagles went limping into the playoffs with more questions than not about who they are. A team that was once 10-1 fell flat on their face. There's no other way to say it. You can call it a choke, you can call it whatever it is. Listen, they just weren't good enough, and they weren't coached good enough. I mean, it goes across the board, and there's more than enough blame to go around. Whether it's the coaches, which are going to get a lot of the attention, whether it's the players who deserve attention, whether it's the front office who also deserves attention. It was bad all around. It was bad all around. Poor decision making. Panicking. Making panicky kind of moves. And I look at this coaching staff, and I understand it, 3 years, they're in the playoffs. They go to a Super Bowl. They almost win the Super Bowl when everything was going right that season, right? There was really not a lot of, there wasn't a lot that went wrong that year. And when you have seasons like that, it's almost like it's easy. Maybe it masks some things. Everyone's singing Kumbaya in the locker room because everything's going well. But that second that things start to go wrong, coaches got to get on top of this, including your head coach. He's got to take care of this stuff, right? The players on social media, this thing getting leaked out, that thing getting leaked out. Coaches got to get on top of it. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world to do, but you see other organizations, other coaches do it. They get on top of it. What did Nick Sirianni do? What did he do? Now you have all these stories come out. As soon as the team starts losing some games, now you have all these stories start hitting. And it starts dividing the team. And beat reporters are going to do what beat reporters are going to do. This is what they've done for years. You go back to the old days of newspaper, the black and white, footage days. Beat reporters are going to do what they do. They're going to print stories. But coaches got to get on top of this kind of stuff. And Nick Sirianni, to my estimation, didn't. Let it go. He allowed what this team became to become what they became this season. And it wasn't just because of the losing at the end of the year. It was the mistakes that this team was making, even when they were winning games. There were mistakes. They were turning the ball over. They got off the slow starts. They weren't scoring a lot in the first half of games. And they got away with it because of the second half, because maybe the other team made a few mistakes here and there. Kansas City, the receiver dropping passes, right? Buffalo, the one receiver ran a wrong route or whatever it is, right? All these different things that kind of worked in the Eagles' favor. Dak Prescott stepping out of bounds before going in for a 2-point conversion, right? All these little things that happened. I believe, what was it, in the Viking game, Jefferson having the ball, knocked out as he was diving for a touchdown, and it became a touchback instead. But all these little things, but these are, but the Eagles were making mistakes too, but they were getting away with it because they were winning games. But it doesn't matter whether you're winning or not. Coaches have got to get on top of these things. They've got to shut this stuff down. Look, we're lucky to win these games, but we got to correct the things that need to be corrected. And they didn't. They just said, well, we're winning. We're okay. No, there was problems that were being, that we could see as fans on the field of play. The balance wasn't there on offense. They weren't committing to have a balanced offense. They weren't running the ball enough. Right? You go out and you get Swift in the offseason, and after the first few weeks where he looks like he's going to be a Pro Bowler, you stop using him. Now they were winning. But there was issues there that didn't get corrected. Now look, the 49er game happened, that's going to happen. The Dallas game in Dallas happened. That's going to happen. It was time and place. The Niners wanted that game like a Super Bowl championship. It was the biggest regular season game in their whole existence, it seemed. And then Dallas, you were playing in Dallas. And Dallas was just red hot in Dallas at that time. And they had extra rest because both those teams played the Thursday night game the week before. Right? But there's still problems that needed to be corrected, even in those losses. They didn't do it. They didn't get on top of things. What do? They make matters worse. Right? They demote the Psy and promote the pencil man, who's never really done much of anything, to be honest. He was a beneficiary of the hoodie in New England. When he was with Detroit, he was terrible. Even last season, the last whatever season, however long he was back in New England, he was terrible there. He's here, he's terrible. I don't know what they're looking at. I really don't. And that divided the room. The defensive players didn't really know what to do. Because now you have a guy that, in all honesty, I don't think they ever really believed in Patricia. And now he's going to be the guy. And now his defense, I mean, you got to learn different things on the fly. There's different cadences. There's different calls. It's tough to do that in the middle of the year. And I know other teams do it. You know, when the snowball starts rolling and rolling, you see, I mean, Pittsburgh changed their offensive coordinator. Other teams will do that type of stuff. But there's more of a rhyme and a reason. It seemed the Eagles just kind of panicked. And they kind of just threw their arms up in the air and said, well, what else can we do? We don't want to just get rid of Desai. You know, let's just go with, promote. We'll just put him up in the booth and we'll go with Patricia. And the reason that they brought Patricia in the offseason is because, honestly, they didn't really fully believe in Desai. It was like Patricia was the backup plan. And they went and they used it. They, in case of emergency, break glass, release pencil. And that's what they did. And boy, that defense played like a pencil, didn't it, the rest of the season? Oh, my God. Oh. And it started in Seattle. Now, they played a little better than it was against San Francisco and Dallas. But at the end of the day, you let Drew Lock go in a 90-plus yard touchdown drive on you. You can't allow that to happen. I don't care if it's here, there, wherever. You can't allow Drew Lock to beat you in that situation. And they did it. Now, the next week, they survive a game against the Giants, in a game that they should have blown the Giants out of the water. They let the Giants hang around and almost come back on them in the fourth quarter. They didn't, but it came close. And that was their last win, because as we all know, here comes the Arizona game, and you let Call of Duty Murray take over the game. That offense. You just allowed that, right? And then the game that I go to with Slim in the Meadowlands, in the cold Meadowlands, and in a stadium that the inside of it was like an ice skating ring. Slim and I had to sit there, and it's just embarrassing watching this team. Just nothing. They look listless out there. They don't know what they're doing on offense. They don't know what they're doing on defense. They're letting the Giants get whatever they want. And you know what type of defense the Giants run. You just played them a few weeks ago. You know they're going to blitz. They're a blitz-happy defense. You know what they're going to do, and it's almost like they were surprised. Oh, they're blitzing. Who knew? You have Jalen rolling out. There's no receivers out where he's rolling, but he keeps going out there, throwing the ball away. And then we get to the playoff game. And as if things couldn't get any worse, here comes the playoff game in Tampa. Here they come. And it's just one disaster after another. Just one disaster. And of course, the week before in the Meadowlands, AJ goes down with an injury, so he's not playing. You're without a big weapon there. I don't know if it would have mattered. If AJ would have played, it doesn't matter because he doesn't play defense anyhow. Because, apparently the defense, for whatever reason, there's this thing called tackling in football. They just didn't understand the concept the last, few weeks of the year. They just, there's no tackling. No, we're just going to let players run right by. No, they seem surprised when the player makes a cut It's like, oh, they know how to do that? Fooled me. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And that game could have been a lot worse. The Bucks dropped a few passes. Evans had a few drops. If they would have played one of the other teams in the play, they would have lost by 30, 40 points. 50 points would have been a loss. They would have played a team like Houston or one of the Buffalo or one of these other teams. The game would have been over after midway through the first quarter. I mean, they were lucky to be in the game for as long as they were. And then just once the floodgates opened, it was over, 32-9. I mean, and again, you're playing. You know what Todd Bowles is going to do. Temple tough, but you know what he's going to do. You've played this defense. You played them earlier in the year. They're going to blitz. This is what they do. So a good coaching staff, and it's not just the coaches, on the players too. You gotta how do you beat a blitz? You run the ball. You have hot routes, slant patterns. You get rid of the ball quick. You don't run these long plays, these long developing plays where guys are going down the field. And now we got to hold on to the ball. And a lot of it's on Jalen too. Listen, he regressed this season. And I think it is partly his fault, but it's on the coaches too. It's on the coaches too. This blame goes all around. All around. Nick Sirianni lost control of the team, and he lost control of the team when they were 10-1. Because there were things that needed to be fixed during that run when they were 10-1 that he never fixed, that he let slide. Like I said, being a coach in the NFL is a privilege. The way he acts, the way he behaves during games, whooping it up with the opposing fans, taunting the opposing fans, and it's all fun and good when we're winning. But I mean, come on, man. You're an NFL head coach. You're not a cheerleader. You're not a player. You're not a fan in the stands. He's acting like that. Mean mugging the camera last year during the Giant playoff game when they whooped up on the Giants. It all comes back. Teams don't forget that kind of stuff. And now we have the mark on us because of his behavior. Going crazy after they beat the Colts last year because the Colts fired Wright before the game. And he's going all nuts after they won that game. Yelling at the Chief fans after we won the game. There is such a thing as winning with pride and just winning humbly. Taking the win. You don't see these other coaches doing this. He's the only coach that does this. And when they're winning and times are going good, it's cute, it's whatever. But listen, but you got to finish that off. You got to finish that season off. When you're 10-1, you better damn well finish the season off with a division title and a high seed. If not the 1 seed, the 2 seed. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think that would have mattered anyhow. We would have been whooped up by the Packers instead of Dallas, as fun as that was to watch. But still, Packers would have came here and won. Honestly. So, and I've said this before, I hate hitting that reset button because you never know what's going to happen. Look, we got lucky. All right? We went from Chip Kelly, who was a disaster. You got Doug Peterson. And he goes on and wins the first ever Super Bowl in franchise history, Super Bowl 52, as we all know. And then some years later, that falls apart. I mean, we didn't see that coming, but it fell apart. The quarterback became I don't even know what Carson Wentz became, but he became that whole drama. They moved on from the coach to appease the quarterback, and the quarterback still didn't want to be here. So they had to get rid of him. But they had Jalen Hurts in the wing. So, okay, take a shot. You bring in a no-name guy, offensive coordinator, whatever, with the Colts, and Nick Sirianni, again, his first head coaching gig. No one really heard much about him beforehand. It was one of those, when I heard the Eagles got him, I'm like, who? Nick Sirianni? Who the heck is that? He sounds like a character in The Sopranos. I mean, come on, what are we doing? But as always, as a fan, I'm willing to give a guy a chance. But that first season, his first season, now he was brought in here, remember, as a young, offensive-minded guy. He comes in here his first season, he gives up the play calling because it's not going well to Shane Steichen. Now, that was a good move because the offense played better after that, right? They turned their season around. They made the playoffs. They got crushed in Tampa. But, okay, they ended the season on a high note, right? And then the next year, they kind of picked up from that, had a great season, goes to the Super Bowl, wins an NFC title, a division title, NFC title, goes to the Super Bowl, is 3 points away from, winning a Super Bowl. Okay, you lose your coordinators. It happens. I've said this how many times? Teams that have success, teams in the playoffs, lose coordinators. It happens. It's the nature of the beast. But you got to replace them. And these two guys were Sirianni's guys. Johnson, who worked with Hurts many years ago, and Desai. Handpicked by Nick Sirianni. Maybe with some help from others, but those are his guys. And they stunk. Both of them. Terrible. One of them lost his job during the season or got demoted during the season. Not good enough. Not good enough. And, this was the problem. This was the problem with Doug. When they won the Super Bowl, they lost coordinators. And at that time, I believe it was more a Howie Roseman forcing guys in there. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman forcing guys in there. And it didn't work, and it fell apart. This time around, I think it was more Sirianni's guys that they got to replace who they lost. They replaced two good, they were two good coordinators. I know that Gannon kind of came under a little, scrutiny towards the end. But look, they set the franchise record, and they were a hair away from setting the all-time league record for sacks last season. Right? You lose Gannon, and yeah, I mean, it hurt. Because you get guys, and it just didn't work out. You get whoever they replaced them, Desai, the pencil man, whatever. Obviously it didn't work out this season. And on offense, look, I mean, there were times that they still looked okay, but for the most part, I mean, it was a struggle. How many turnovers did this team have on offense compared to a year ago? I mean, the sloppy play. Even as I said, even in wins, it was sloppy. Didn't look anywhere near the same as it was a year ago. How fluid they looked. The RPOs were better last season. They were a much better offense. Now, part of that's the players making plays. Part of that's the play calling. Play calling was much better. First of all, you didn't have a gabillion bubble screens that go nowhere, but they still loved it. It's like they had 5 plays on offense. They have 5 plays. 2 of them are bubble screen looking things that don't do anything. They have a deep ball that most of the time gets deflected or intercepted or whatever. They have we're going to roll Hurts out, even though his knee is obviously an issue. And I think that contributed to his problems this season because he wasn't as explosive athletically as we saw a year ago. And he'll probably have some sort of knee surgery in the offseason. Hopefully he'll be better next season, but we'll see. But even with that, we're going to have him run. And that usually just gave him maybe a couple yards. And then you had the shove. And the only way that would be good is if you're on a third or, a goal line situation. That's their plays. You had nothing over the middle. I think they said they had 5.2% during the season where they threw passes down the middle. I don't understand that at all. I'm watching these other teams. I'm at Slim's, and shout out to Slim. We had a great time, even though, the Eagles were a problem. But I'm at his place this past weekend. I'm watching these other games, and every one of these games, even the teams that lose, you see creativity in their offenses. You see teams that actually know how to use tight ends. That would be good. I mean, we have a pretty good one in Dallas Goedert. You wouldn't know it because we hardly use him. Right? You have all these tight end Buffalo with the Kincaid and who are going right down the middle. Oh, here comes a little pass down the middle. There's a big gainer, right? You have these other players, other teams with speedy receivers, and we're going to just do the slant pattern. Here they go, big gains. It's not just we're going to chuck the ball down the field, down the field, down the field, right? You see some of that, but you see a lot of the intermediate passing game that works for these teams. Like Houston, how many times you see that from them? And this is a young offense, rookie quarterback. Look at the success they're having on offense. Creativity that team has. Detroit doing it, right? All these teams that won the play. Green Bay has the youngest offense in football, and look at them. Look at the creativity. They committed to running the football. Oh, my God. What a novel concept that is. And you know what that did? When they committed to running the ball, that opened things up for the passing game. Even though they have a young and experienced quarterback in the playoffs playing on the road against a vaunted team that doesn't lose at home in Dallas. But what did they do? They came out. First of all, when they won the toss, they took the ball, and they smacked Dallas in the face. When's the last time you've seen the Eagles do this? Every time the Eagles win the coin toss, we got to kick it off. Because we all know our defense is really is that tough defense that teams just fear anymore. Set the tone. But Green Bay out there running the ball, and it leads to the place they were able to make in the passing game because they committed to it. Even when they got stopped for a yard or no gain or 2 yards. Well, we can't run the ball anymore. No, they committed to it. They kept going, and they had a running back who came back from an injury to have that kind of game. With the Eagles coaching, running the ball is like this alien concept. Oh my God, run the ball. Why would we want to do that? I don't know. Maybe because you're going up against a defense that likes to blitz a lot? Maybe that's one way to beat it. Just uncreative. And again, this is a guy in Sirianni who was brought in as a young, right, offensive-minded guy. I don't get it. I don't. I know people are going to say, well, a year ago he got to the Super Bowl. You know what? I get that. But I look beyond that. I look at how this team has looked this season. And that you have players that, and they'll never admit it, you have players that gave up on him this year. They gave up. And when you lose a team and when you lose the locker room and the leaders on the team, coach has got to go. I don't care how they try to dress this up in the offseason. Oh, we can get this coordinator and that coordinator. If Nick Sirianni is still here next season, it's going to be the same garbage. It's not going to get better. Because once you lose a locker room, it's over for a coach. I don't care what coach it is. Once that happens, it's done. It's done. And I know it's only been 3 years. It is what it is. But we're also in a situation this year where you have more coaches out there, quality coaches, that you can replace Sirianni with. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying bring Hoodie in here. I mean, I would love to see, right, whether it's Harbaugh or another coach who's a really good offensive mastermind type of coach. And Harbaugh had a lot of success when he was in the NFL originally with the 49ers. I mean, a lot of the stuff you're seeing them do now with Shanahan, Harbaugh was doing before that with that team. And they went to a Super Bowl. They lost that one to the Ravens. But that was a very good offense. And he designed a lot of what they did, right? Why was it such a good offense? Because he's a very good offensive play caller. I mean, I would love to have him here. I think that would, I still believe in Jalen. I do. I just think he needs to be coached up better. I think that he fell back into bad patterns that this coaching staff allowed to happen. And I think he needs to be kind of reset by a better offensive mind. Because obviously it's not Johnson, and it sure as hell isn't Sirianni. So someone else has got to come in here. And I don't know who that person is. I don't know if it will be Bieniemy or a Harbaugh or another young, a better offensive-minded coach than Sirianni. You know, the guy in Detroit, the guy in Houston, whatever. But someone's got to come here and hit that reset button with Jalen. I still think there's a lot of good in him. Look, he finished second in MVP voting a year ago. I mean, he's still a very good young quarterback. He just needs to be coached up better. Obviously, what happened this season was a big mistake. But I still think we have something there. I think we have talent there. It just needs to be coached better. I'm not ready to just give up on Jalen. I'm not ready to give up on this offense, on the pieces that they have. But I think they need to be coached better. And I think that there's ample availability of coaches out there right now this offseason that they can bring here, and it will get better next season. Am I saying Super Bowl better? Probably not right away. But I certainly think that you'll get more out of the offensive weapons that this team does have and will continue to have with better coaching. And yeah, it goes hand in hand. The players have to play. The players have to make the plays. And that goes hand in hand. But the coaching must be better. And I just fear it won't be if you keep Sirianni here. I don't know what he does, to be honest. If he needs a better offensive coordinator, he sure as hell doesn't know anything about defense. So then what's your job as a coach? To keep the team together. To help to design these plays that work on the field on Sundays, that allow you to advance in the playoffs. But you got to keep the team together. That's one of the biggest roles of a coach. It's almost like you got to be that father figure to a lot of these players. And you can't just be buddy-buddy. And when times are going bad, you're just going to kind of, I don't know, hide or quibble, kind of shrink up. And I just think Sirianni just did too much of that. I mean, I don't see him taking control of anything. Now, I'm not there. None of us are in the locker room. We're not on the practice fields. We don't know, right? We're just talking as fans. I'm talking to you as someone here on YouTube. I have no idea. I don't go to the practices. I'm not in the locker room. But I know what I see on the field. And it got progressively worse as the season went on. And that's coaching, and that's players too. They're not without blame. Even the veterans on this team, the leaders that wear the C's. A.J. Brown, not without blame. Look, when you get hurt, you know, even though you're not on the field, you got to be with the team in Tampa. You can't be going to some fight the night before in Atlantic City and not being with your team. That's not a good look. But coaches got to reel that in too. Right? It just goes across the board. Listen, the way this season ended, there's enough blame to go around everywhere, right? Players, coaches, front office, and they're not without blame either. Howie, all right, you keep getting these guys from Georgia. I mean, to this point, it really hasn't worked. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing other players that we could have drafted, like Hamilton, having a Pro Bowl season with the Ravens, Porter Jr., the cornerback out of your backyard of Penn State. You couldn't draft him, and he's having a good year with Pittsburgh. Difference-making cornerback, safety, and Hamilton. And this team, listen, I understand that they have had a lot of success, maybe more success than most other teams and other franchises. We're just going to get pressure with the linemen, with the front line, with the defensive line, with our front four. That's how we're going to generate pressure, right? We don't have to value linebacker or safety as much as maybe other teams do, but we're still going to have success. This is our philosophy, and this is how we're going to win. You have to value the linebacker and the safety positions better. It has to be better. Must be better. And proof positive is how this season ended. When you see piss poor play like that on the field by these guys. You can't count during seasons of we're struggling, we have some injuries, let's just get so-and-so from this team at the deadline or this guy off the waiver wire and plug them in and everything's going to be fine. You can't count on that. You have to assess the talent in the offseason. I understand there's injuries. There's injuries with every team. And I know last season part of the reason why everything went well is because they stayed healthy, right? They were the most healthiest team at the end of the year. But, I mean, obviously they didn't win. But they got to the Super Bowl as the healthiest team left. But you can't count on that every year. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be times where, other guys got to step up, but you need your younger players to step up. You can't just go out there and bring in XYZ off the waiver wire, off the street, or from some other team. Because, look, there's a reason that some of those players aren't playing with those teams for a reason. Maybe they're just not that good. Or maybe there's a reason that those teams are so willing to let those guys go at the deadline. There's something they know. And Howie's made some decent moves over the years in doing that. I know last year he brought Lenvale Joseph and Ndamukong Suh off the waiver wire, and that worked out. They were rotational guys on the defensive line. They aided to that team setting the franchise record in sacks last season. They worked out, but you can't count on that every season. You have to draft better. You must draft better. You have to draft not just for starters, but for depth players. And that has to be better. And you must value two of the most important positions on any defense is linebacker and safety. And I don't know. Am I going to trust that they're going to do it this offseason? I can't say that. Trotter's son's coming out of the draft this year. Jeremiah was a pretty damn good Eagle for many years. His son's coming out there. Maybe we should draft him. He's a very good linebacker coming into the NFL. But the Eagles' philosophy is we're just going to get pressure on the front four. And then, the edge rushers, although Patricia wanted to use them in coverage. Hassan Reddick in coverage. Your best pass rusher is going to be a coverage guy. That pencil, there's just something about that damn pencil. I don't know. But Howie's got to be better. Look, we praised him, and it was rightfully so. He had a really good offseason last year. In season, he made a lot of everything he did touch seemed to turn to gold last season, right? Went to the Super Bowl, had a lot of success. They won a Super Bowl back in 52. But you can't just depend on that kind of philosophy to always win, because teams are going to adjust to you, not just defensively, but offensively. They're going to find your weaknesses, right? You have to adjust. When they adjust to you, you got to adjust back. And the philosophy I understand about the defensive front, I get that. But you have to put more emphasis on linebacker and particularly safety play and cornerback as well. We can't just keep retreading these older corners. When there's young guys that can help you coming out of the draft, like a Porter Jr., maybe you draft that guy. Instead, we're just going to put more to the defensive line. And I hope that those guys turn up, the next few seasons, Davis and Carter and the others, I mean, it's hard it's hard to really assess after a season or two in the NFL. I mean, if that were true, then, Brandon Graham would have been a bust, right? Because when he started his career, Brandon Graham really wasn't setting the world on fire. Right? Everyone wanted, we all bemoaned that they should have had Earl Thomas. We all wanted Earl Thomas because they just got rid of Dawkins and traded Dawkins. Oh, Earl's there. He's there in the draft. And instead they took Brandon Graham. And for a while there, for a few seasons, it wasn't looking good. Earl's out there balling out with the Seahawks. They're winning a Super Bowl. They're in another Super Bowl, right? But BG when he started, finding it in the NFL, he found it. And lo and behold, here he is, the most games played as an Eagle, and he made the signature moment defensively in Super Bowl 52 with the strip sack, right? We'll always be grateful for that moment and for him as an Eagle. He's Mr. Eagle, So sometimes that does work out. So you can't just, assess after 1 year or 2 years and say, oh, this guy's going to be a bust. So I give it at least 3-4 years to really see what these players are going to be. And I do believe that Carter's going to be a good player. I know he kind of fizzled out, but then again, the whole team fizzled out after that 10-1 start. But it's tough. You're playing more games, you're playing more snaps in the NFL than you do in college. Some players, it doesn't seem like they skip a beat. Some players do. Second half, there's that second half struggle. And sometimes it just lasts for the rest of the year. And then when they get more acclimated to being an NFL player and what the training regimen has to be, what their diet has to be, to get through the rigors of a full season and still have enough left in the tank for the postseason, those are the players those are the ones that do work out. And we got to hope as a fan base that it works out with these guys, and I believe it will, at least with Carter. I don't know about Davis. Now, I'm willing to give him another year or two. We'll see. But I still don't like the fact that Hamilton was right there, and instead of going that route, they went back to the defensive line. Davis just can't seem to stay in shape. But who knows? I mean, it's 2 seasons. We'll see. We'll see maybe if year 3, if it really all starts to sink in and his off-season is a little better and his in-season, more importantly, is a little better and he can kind of, be that player that they were drafting in the first round, right? That's what we got to hope. But yeah, they have to address the need at linebacker and at safety for sure, and cornerback for sure. They have to put more of an emphasis on this in the draft, not just free agency or in season off the waiver wire or a trade. You can't just count on that because then you're counting on players coming in that don't really know the defense right away. It's going to take some time to learn it, right? It's tough. It doesn't always work out as we saw. Last year it worked out okay. This year, not so much. This year, it looks like there were some swings and misses. But Howie's going to be aggressive, and as a fan, I'm glad he's aggressive. But I want him to be better at assessing talent in the draft. And don't just draft guys from Georgia. That's... I get it. It was an idea. I see the Knicks are kind of getting the Villanova guys together now. We'll see. But right? Although if Bridges is going to get traded anywhere, I want him to come home. I want Mikal Bridges to be a Sixer. Oh my God, that was so dumb they traded him on draft night. But no, no. Let's not just look at one school, Howie. There's other schools to look at that have a lot of talent. And I get the SEC. I know for years we complained because he kept going to the Pac-12 guys, and that wasn't working. Why aren't we going to the SEC? Why aren't we going to the Big Ten? Right, and then he goes to the SEC, and he goes to one school that won a lot. Yeah, I will, back-to-back champions, but you're just pulling from that one school. But there's others. There's Alabama. There's, in the there's Ohio State in the Big Ten. There's Michigan. In the Big Ten, you can get some of those guys, too. Even some of those Washington guys looked okay, too. But no, Howie's got to be better. Jeffrey Lurie's got to be better, It's all under his watch. And I know he doesn't like to be embarrassed like this. No owner would. But back to the question at hand, and again, I know it's 3 years. It's his first blush, right, after that loss. But it's not just that game in Tampa. It's not even just how the last few games went. It's when there were problems with this team that could have been corrected and weren't. That falls on the coaching. That falls on the players too. But it falls on the coaching. You got to coach them up. And they didn't. They let things slide. They got a little too high on the hog, right? They went to the Super Bowl last year. They started with 10 wins. Oh, what do we got to fix? It's all fixed. We're having one of those years. Well, things that needed to be tightened up and fixed that weren't. The oil started leaking, and instead of fixing the problem, you just let it keep going until it was gushing out. And by then, it was too late. It was too late. Look, they were going to make the playoffs. At 10-1, you're not going to not make the playoffs after that. But you knew it was going to be one and done, regardless of who they played. It didn't matter if it was Tampa, whoever they would have played. It would have been over because you just don't turn it on. if you're playing that poorly at the end of the year, there's no switch that gets flipped, and you go from looking like one of the worst teams in the league to a Super Bowl champion. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. So, we had to have our humble pie, and that's what it is, right? This season was a disaster. I saw some things. I mean, the special teams looked much better. That's kind of weird, right? Because they looked so terrible. The one thing they corrected was the special teams, but offensively, defensively, no. And there was no creativity on this offense. We could, the brotherly shove play, whatever, but no creativity, just none. We have a tight end that doesn't get used. We have running backs that don't get used. It's just, it's just bad. It's just bad all around. But like I said, I think that with the fact that there's a bevy of coaches out there that they can pluck one of these guys to be here to start to turn things around, I think that there's enough out there that you can get offensive, defensive coordinators and to make the changes that need to be made, because if you just keep Sirianni here, and I could be 100% wrong. I mean, maybe they I don't know, maybe they go out and somehow, swing for the fences and they get Bieniemy away from Washington to be their OC, and they get a really good DC. And maybe things do look better next season, even with Sirianni still here. But I worry about him. And I worry about him because of this season, because he lost the room. He lost the team. And you do that once, and you go back to him, it can happen again. The first sign of struggle next season, it can happen again. It could absolutely happen again. And for that reason alone, I would not feel comfortable bringing him back. I just wouldn't. And like I said, I hate hitting that reset button. We've had to see this, right? We went through Chip Kelly, we went to Doug Peterson, and that was a good move. But then a few years later, after a Super Bowl title, we're moving on from Doug, and we're bringing in Nick. And we're going, okay, what's going on here, right? And we had our concerns, but then how that season ended, right, with some promise. And then all of a sudden, here we are in a Super Bowl. And things are looking amazing. And then you go from that to this. And there is something about the team that loses in the Super Bowl. The only team in the recent decades that got back the year after they lost was the Patriots, and that was the Patriots, right? That was the greatest dynasty ever, right? Or at least Brady. That the team that had Tom Brady was able to do that. You're not going to see that very often. And I was hoping to look past that this year. It's there's a lot of talent. We can do it. No. So maybe there is something about that, losing that Super Bowl that next year is a poor year. And it didn't look like it was going to be, but boy, that flip got switched. It was brutal to watch. It was really tough. And like I said, I've seen some tough seasons. I've seen some tough Eagles teams to watch. Really bad ones, really just piss poor. And this was, even with 11 wins, this was right up there. How that season ended, how this season, sitting there at the freezing cold Meadowlands watching the team get demolished by the Giants and the Giant fans whooping it up. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. And then, of course, how the season ends in Tampa. Just listless game. Just no tackle, no effort. Tackling is effort. Right? The teams that seem to want to win, you see the effort that they bring. Even in losing effort sometimes, some of these teams in the playoffs, you see them at least give effort, show something. But there was no effort on that field in Tampa, at least for the team that was wearing the green and white. No effort. And it was embarrassing. As an Eagle fan, sitting watching that, even though I wasn't there, I was at Slim's in Maryland, but it was embarrassing watching that game. Yeah, that's my team, man. I root for them through thick and thin. I always want them to win. And to watch that performance, like I said, there's enough blame to go around all over Front office. I always said about the three legs of the tripod, right? The front office, the coach, and the quarterback. There's enough blame to go around, and all the players, even the leaders, the players that wear the C's. There's enough blame to go around. When you end a season like that, no one's safe. But I just don't think you can go back to Sirianni. Not after that. Not after how this season ended. I just don't think he can. Now, will they? That's their prerogative if they do. But for me, I don't want to see him back here. I just don't. I don't think we're going to win with him. I don't. He lost the locker room once. I would worry that it would happen again. And I just don't think he had any answers. I think that it was like, he's very robotic in his replies to everything. We got to learn from this. We got to get better. Well, I mean, did you? Did you learn from anything? Were there any changes made at all on the offense? Were there adjustments made in-game, week to week? Or was it the same old, same old? It was the same old, same old. It was stale. And you let it happen. It was almost like there was no preparation during the week to anything. So I can't trust this guy back. I can't do it. And whether it's a Harbaugh or whether it's some other young coordinator, whoever, I just think we got to hit that button and move on and get a new head coach in here. And I hate doing it. I don't want to be one of those franchises that every however many years we're going to have a new coach, right? That's not stability. But at the same time, we've had success doing that, right? Peterson and Sirianni, they both went to a Super Bowl. Peterson won one, Sirianni didn't. But it's not to say we can't do it again. Because I believe the talent's here, at least on offense. They got some work to do on defense. But I do believe they have some pieces on offense that they can certainly work with, but they need to be coached better to fall out of those bad habits that they allowed them to get back into this season. Again, I believe in Jalen Hurts. I think he had a rough year, and he was part of the reason why their struggle was what it was down the stretch. But I think he's a correctable player, and I think he just needs to be coached better. And I think that there are plenty of coaches out there available right now who could do that with him. But it's up to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman to make that move. And obviously nothing's happened yet. I mean, both their coordinators are still around. They haven't done anything yet today. But there's a whole rest, some days to go. And the Eagles don't seem to be one of those teams that just, this is it, right? They kind of tend to think about it a little bit before they make the move. I know the Chip Kelly's last year, they fired him before the last game of the year. And the interim coach came and won the game in the Meadowlands, the meaningless game. But, Doug, I mean, it didn't happen right away. I think there was some interview or whatever with him, and they didn't see eye to eye about whatever it was, the coordinators or whatever it was, and the quarterback at the time, Wentz, and they relieved him of his duties, and then traded Wentz not long after that. And that crazy offseason, and that's when we got Sirianni, and the rest is history. But I do believe the one thing I know about for over the years about Jeffrey Lurie is he is not one that enjoys being embarrassed, and he doesn't want this franchise to be embarrassed. And these fans, and the fans have a lot of pull in this town. Believe me, this is an Eagles town. I know we love our Phillies. We love our Phillies, we love our Sixers, and we love our Flyers, and we love our Union, right? This is an Eagles town. This is a football town, first and foremost. And it's the lifeblood. And sports talk radio is a lifeblood. The media is a lifeblood. And the fans are a lifeblood. And there's a lot of pull with these sources. So when moves happen, right or wrong, at times, it's because of people like me who express my opinion, right? Who are one of the many, many, many Eagles fans in this town who, the front office doesn't want to be embarrassed. Doesn't want us to be embarrassed. Doesn't want them to be embarrassed. Doesn't want their brand to be embarrassed. So when times come to make moves, they'll make moves. I don't want to do this too much, but I do believe that this is a time to make a move. And I just think that Sirianni has coached his last game as an Eagle. I really do. And I would not blame them for moving on from him, particularly like I said, in an offseason when you have other prime target available coaches that can come in here and change things for the better quickly. And even if the first year or two is a year of getting acclimated in the new system and whatever, even if it's a non-playoff year next season, but I see change and I see, I see a vision. I'll be okay with that. Honestly, I'll be okay with it. Because I don't want to sit here as a fan and be embarrassed watching a game like that against Tampa. That's just not what it's supposed to be. And I do believe that there is change for the better that can be made. And I do think that this is a franchise that's not going to take very long to get back to where we want it to be. Because there's still a lot of talent that's still going to be here. But they just need better coaching. And the players got to play better too. Absolutely. It goes hand in hand. But I do think they have to be coached better. And I do think the scheming has to be much better on offense and much, much better on defense. And I think Howie's got to, you got to own up to it. Sometimes you got to own up to your mistakes. He's got to own up to it and get some linebackers and safeties in here. That damn well better happen. That damn well better happen. I mean, let's not forget that one of our most beloved Eagles of all time was a safety in Brian Dawkins. It's been far too long since we've had anything like that in the safety position on this team. It's time to get back to that. They always talk about the hungry dogs. Hungry dogs have bite. Let's get some guys with some bite on this team. Enough. Because watching that, that's not it. That's not it. In that game on Monday night. That's not it. Sitting in the Meadowlands, at the cold Meadowlands, watching that performance, that's not it. Watching this team on defense, not being able to get off the field against Murray and the Cardinals, that's not it. That's not what I want my Eagles to be. This is a team that has a legacy of defense. It's a legacy. It's time to bring it back. And whoever the coach is that has to bring it back, they got to get that right coach and they got to bring it back. Because out on that field these past how many weeks? I mean, that was worse than flag football. That's what that was. That's not what the Eagles defense should ever look like. It just shouldn't. I don't want to sound like an old head, Chuck Bednarik years or the Reggie White years or whatever. But look, this is the legacy with this franchise of having great defensive players, and that's what this team needs to find again. They need to re-find it. They need to re-find it. You gotta have dogs that bite, and that's what I want to see that's what all of us want to see as fans of this franchise. And it has to get better on offense. We have to get more creative on offense. And you have the players to do it with. But we need the coaches. And it's got to go hand in hand. I get it. But we need that. We don't have that. And I fear if Sirianni's still here, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Because he has a hand in this. As a head coach and as an offensive-minded guy, he has a hand in this. And if you don't have the right offensive guy with him, we're just going to have the same problems. And with the fact that you do have some good offensive-minded coaches out there that you can get, let's make it happen. So at the end of the day, and I know I've gone about an hour here, listen, this is the last video of this season for Season of the Fan, for this particular season of the series. Frustrated, disappointed, embarrassed. And so I'm an Eagles fan, like so many that want to see change. It has to be better. The goal of this franchise should be to get back on top, to be a champion again, to win multiple Lombardis. We're told it from other fan bases. Oh, you just have the one. Ugh. I mean, they always overlook the championships back in the day. I mean, I know it was before Super Bowls. I get that. But they happened. It's part of NFL history. So realistically, this team does have 4 championships. They have 1 Super Bowl, but they have 3 NFL titles. But regardless, it's a franchise that look, we're not satisfied with 1. I know the front office isn't satisfied with 1. It's about trying to find a way to add to the cabinet, right? To bring more Lombardis into that cabinet. And the only way to do that is to make these changes that have to be made. Sirianni has to go. Others got to go. We got to find a way to change this thing. Because it's not too late to change it. It's not. There are ways to do that. There's resources to do that who are out there. But it's up to the powers that be of this front office to make sure that happens. They have an opportunity in front of them. I just don't want to see them screw it up. So this season was very roller. I mean, you talk about a roller coaster ride of emotion. This season was it. It was absolutely it. From the highest points to the lowest points, how the season ended. It was an unusual year. It was a very emotionally charged year. It was a roller coaster ride. It ended absolutely in the shitter. No other way to put it. Embarrassing. And that shouldn't be this franchise. That should not be this franchise and us as a fan base. There's too much passion here for this. And the mistakes that were made need to be learned. It needs to be corrected. Things need to get better. And it's up to the powers that be to do it. Look, us as fans, we can only do so much, right? We can just come on YouTube and yell and tell about our emotions about, what we see, right? But it's up to the powers that be in the front office to change it. And maybe at some point, if it doesn't work, that means some of them got to go. It means Howie's got to go. If it doesn't get better, right? Because Jeffrey's not going to go. So it's got to be Howie, right? That hot seat's going to get pretty hot for him, right? But he's not going anywhere this offseason, so we're not even going to worry about it. Okay, we're not going to worry about Howie right now, but the coach. And I think that they need to make the change there. And at least that will start something, right? And then they have, decisions to make. And obviously we have some captains, some longtime Eagles that might not be here, next season. There's still kind of talk about will he or won't he for Jason Kelce. And let me say this. If that was his last game, I feel so terrible for him. That's not a way to go out. That just isn't. That was a pathetic display, that game. It's a shame to see a player like that who's fought with everything he's had for this franchise, for this team, for how many years, But you talk about an all-time Eagle and a Warrior, that's Jason Kelce. Listen, if all these players, if all these coaches could be with his emotion, we would be great every year. But obviously, that's something that can't happen. But he's represented this franchise as well as anyone has ever represented this franchise. And I've watched him his whole career. I've, watched every Eagles game he's played. He's been under center for the Eagles. And he will always be beloved in this town for his passion, his emotion. That Super Bowl champion speech in the Mummers outfit will never be forgotten. That speech that he made, that spoke to Philly. For a guy who came here from, Cincinnati, I mean, he spoke like a Philadelphian at that parade. What he said is what we all felt. And that came right from his heart. And I know there's that great documentary about him on Amazon. If you haven't watched it, feel free to do it. You don't even have to be an Eagles fan to appreciate that. If you're a fan of football, you'll appreciate that documentary. But he is a terrific person, and he'll always be an Eagle. I'm sure his number will be retired at some point. He'll be an Eagles Hall of Famer. He'll be a Hall of Famer. He'll be in Canton, Ohio someday. There'll be a bust of him and his brother at some point down the road. But you talk about just all-time Eagle, what it is to be a Philadelphia Eagle. That's Jason Kelce. And, Fletcher Cox, big old 91. We'll see. Maybe he'll be back. We'll see. But if that was his last game, Big Fletch, I thank you too. You're one of the champions on this team. 91 will more than likely be retired at some point. He'll be an Eagle Hall of Famer at some point. Helped us win a Super Bowl. His jersey was the jersey I wore, replica fashion. Watching that game, tears of joy coming down, collapsing on the ground afterwards. I wore it to the parade. That jersey is my favorite jersey in my collection. Of all these 1,000 whatever jerseys I own, it's that one because that has that moment. I was wearing it during that moment. And Big Fletch, I know there was, seasons of up and down, but he is a warrior. He played his heart out. He exemplified what it is to be a Philadelphia Eagle, and he is one of the all-time greats for sure. BG, I would imagine he'll be back again next season, but if for some reason that was his last game as an Eagle, he will absolutely, like the rest, be an all-time Eagle. His 55 will probably be retired at some point by the Eagles. The all-time, he's played more games than anyone in Eagles history. He's meant so much to the franchise. He's meant so much to us as fans. His strip sack in Super Bowl 52, as we know, will never be forgotten. I have a picture of it on the wall that's never coming down. His spirit is something that will always be remembered. And he, like Fletch and like Jason, exemplified what it is to be a Philadelphia Eagle and what it is to play for this in front of these fans. And he got it because, believe me, he was booed early in his career. Like I said, we all want Earl Thomas. But I'll tell you what, I'm happy we got BG because BG proved his worth, got better. He took the negativity and he let it fuel him to be a better player. Whereas a lot of players shy away from it and talk about the Philly fans. Oh, look at those horrible. BG embraced it because he knew he could be better. And he knew we wanted him to be better. So he embraced that, and he became the player that he is today. And an all-time legend, Mr. Eagle. Absolutely. And I believe Lane Johnson will be back. He's still under contract. I don't think he's going to retire. But, it is, bittersweet, to see some of those guys go, particularly Kelce, obviously, if Big Fletch isn't back, if BG isn't back. You talk about guys. I've watched so many years of these guys. They were, in a way, they're a part of my life. How long have they been on this team every season? I've been doing, throughout all these years of this series, I believe that they've been on this team. The season of the fan series. I mean, these guys came up as young pups. And they grew into hungry dogs. And they'll always be remembered. And I'm glad to say that I've watched them play. I've seen them in person at games. I've seen them many, many times on TV watching games, the big moments, the not-so-good moments. But you talk about three players who exemplified what it should be to wear that uniform, to wear the wings on the helmet. It's those three right there. And they will absolutely be missed. They will be remembered. And like I said, I mean, their numbers are going to be retired on this in Lincoln Financial Field someday. They're going to be honored as they should be. And in Kelce's case, I believe, he'll be a Hall of Famer. BG, maybe you can make a little argument, maybe, numbers or whatever, but Big Fletch, but certainly Kelce would be a Hall of Famer. He changed that position. He changed the way they play the center position. And he'll be in Canton. His brother will be too. And I'm also happy to say with Slim, we met Mama Kelce, a couple years ago. And what a great family that is. It's not any surprise that Jason and his brother are who they are when they have a family like that. Um, but at any rate, I just wanted to say that in conclusion here. Um, and I want to thank all of you for the support to this series and continued support to the channel. Now that another season has come to a close for the Eagles, I'm not going to do any more Season of the Fan videos until next season. I don't know what they're going to do. If they're going to make a move at the coaching position, I would. But I'm not Jeffrey Lurie and I'm not Howie Roseman, so I can't make that move. Right? I hope they do, but we'll see. I know there's going to be players lost. There's going to be players coming and going. It's a business, after all. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about any sport. What I will say about the Philly sports scene right now, I think there's a lot of things looking up. I think we have some positives. I know I know it's this. Let's get over that second round hurdle, right? Let's get over the second round hump. But I'm happy with what I'm seeing out of my Sixers. Nick Nurse has done a great job as a coach. Talk about a team that needed a new coach, and they've done really well. I think there's still some moves they need to make at the deadline or what have you, but Joel is playing an MVP season for him. Needs to do it in the playoffs. The big man needs to do it in the playoffs. We all know this, but they're having a really good year. Tyrese Maxey's a joy to watch, and there's hope. I do feel there's hope for the Sixers. Maybe this will be the year we get out of the second round. We'll see. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing out of the Flyers, regardless if they make the playoffs or not. They have been a revelation. The new era of orange is in full force. They've turned a page. They have played. You talk about the Eagles not playing with pride and passion. This past Monday night, the Flyers have done it every night. They have been a treat to watch. Their goaltending and defense is top notch. They might not score as much as some other teams do in the league, but they take away goals from other teams. They score on other teams' power play. They can actually stop power plays now. They're a good penalty kill unit. We haven't been able to say that for a while. And they're actually winning shootouts now. Oh, my. So, it's been a fun season so far. Am I expecting it to finish with Lord Stanley's Cup? No. But I'm glad to see them turn the page. And Danny Briere and Keith Jones and the powers that got into the front office to kind of change this, I'm happy for it. Because that's what this franchise desperately needed for so long. And I know the Cutter Gauthier deal, he didn't want to be a Flyer. You know what? They got rid of him. He's a good young talent, but you can't have that. You can't have that in your organization, as they say in hockey. They nipped it right in the bud. They seem to have gotten a good young defensive player. So we'll see. Obviously, time will tell if Gauthier is one of the all-time great goal scorers or whatever. Obviously, we're going to say, man, it could have been here. But you know what? Even for a young player, you can't have that punk type of mentality. And this franchise, look, it sets the message that to wear this uniform, it means something. To wear that flying P on the front on the crest, it means something. It meant a lot for those players that played under Ed Snyder's time with the Flyers, obviously for many years, and it's starting to mean that again. And it went away for a while. We kind of got lost in the wilderness there for some years, but it's good to see them back, and it's good to see that it means something to wear that Flyer sweater again. And I think as time goes on over the next few years, I think this team will just get better and better. And at some point within the next however many years it's going to take, this team is going to be contending for cups. I look forward to the future. I think they have some good young players. I know Gauthier won't be part of the future, but Mishkov might be, coming from Russia in some years. And they have some other young prospects that look like they're going to be okay too. I think the future is there for the Flyers. The present's there for the Flyers. And listen, when the Flyers are going well, this town, I know I say it's an Eagles town. It is. It's a football town. But don't let it fool you. When times are going well for the Flyers, the playoff hockey, that atmosphere at the Wells Fargo Center, is something else, and it is a very, very passionate hockey town as well. It's been lying in dormant for some years, I know. We've let Ranger fans and Bruin fans take over the stadium last year. But this is a fan base that cares about the Flyers. They always have from the inception of the team. And when they're good and times are going good and this team is showing us reason to pay attention and to cheer them on, this fan base will do it as well as any fan base in the country and in the NHL, I should say, obviously in Canada too. There's been players, even players that one of my all-time most hated players, Matthew Barnaby, former Buffalo Sabre. He came out recently when the Gauthier stuff happened, and he said, and this is a guy that was hated in this town, he said that he loved playing in Philadelphia. The fans, the energy, he said he wished he could have been a Flyer. And you know what? After he said that, I still can't stand him. But maybe it softened just a little bit after he said that. Because rivals of the Flyers have said that about the fans. They've said just that passion, that energy that's in that stadium when times are going well. They say it's one of the toughest places to play. And it kind of meant something to them when they would win games here because they know how tough it is to play here when the Flyers are doing good and the fans are all up against the boards. And it's a different atmosphere here when times are going well. And I will welcome that back because I've missed it. I missed the Flyers the last few years. And Keith Johnson, we never went away. We just had to come back or whatever. However he worded that, right? It's great to see them playing good. I know there's still a long season to go. I'm not expecting great. You know what? It's a gravy year for me. Whatever they do, it's a gravy year because this wasn't expected this year, right? So I'm glad to see the young players playing well. They're playing like Flyers again, and it's great to see. And I'm happy to watch them play, regardless of who. I'm tuning them in. I have them on. They're not. It's like they give you reasons to watch now. And I've watched them when they were bad too, but I've waited for them to get good again. And again, I'm not expecting a cup run this year, but if they can make the playoffs, I think that would be great. But they're bringing pride back to that logo and back to that uniform, and that's something that's sorely been missing here for too many years. So it's great to see again. And for my Phillies, season's just around the corner again. My 17-game plan is just around the corner again. The days at Citizens Bank Park is almost here again. I still want to see them make some moves. I'm happy they brought Nola back. But let's not just sit on that. I want to see them get a closer. I want to see them maybe get another pitcher. A bat off the bench would be nice. So, yeah, I think they still have some work to do before the season begins. But I trust the front office to do it. They've done nothing but however many years, right? They've spent that stupid money so many times we can't complain. But I still think there's some pieces that they need to add before the season starts, and hopefully they will. They've been very quiet. They've been too quiet. They know something. Something's coming. So we'll see. I think there's still some things to be excited for and to look forward to as we progress with the winter teams, and then, of course, the boys of summer in the Phillies. So we will see, but and we'll see what the Eagles do. Obviously, hey, that's the pulse of the city. So we're always going to have our eyes on what they're doing and our ears to what they're doing. They got to do some work. Like I said, I do believe they need to move on from the coach and get another coach in here, and a coaching staff. And there's going to be changes made in the offseason, I'm sure. I mean, players are going to come and go. But I think the big thing is the coaching staff needs to change. Will they do it? To be continued. But in this humble fan's opinion, I believe that's what they got to do, and it's up to the powers to be to do it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining me in here again on another season. This was a disappointing end. But, changes need to be made, and we'll see if they do it. I'm going to be here. I'm here every season for them, regardless of how the previous year ends, whether it was in confetti in Super Bowl 52, near confetti last year, or, oh, God, what the hell was that this year? I'll be back again for them next season. That's what fans do, you know. I'll be back again for them next season, and hope for better results at the end of the year, certainly than what happened this year. Um, Big off season. It's always football season. Never stops. Before you know it, it's going to be free agency. It's going to be the draft. It's going to be OTAs. It's going to be the preseason, and then the regular season next season, 2024-25 season will be here just before you know it. So we look forward to it. We hope for some change, and we'll see what they do. But as you know, rest assured, I'll be back again next season for season 11. I can't do it with two hands now. It's 11 of season of the fan, the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's going to do it for this series for this season. But of course, there's going to be plenty more content on the channel. I have plenty of jersey content, the In the Life series, of course, for my wacky collecting. You know, you're going to see plenty of that and whatever else I can come up with. So join me in those adventures too. And I do thank you again for all the support to the channel for this series and for all my series. What do you always got to do? Leave those likes. God knows I need likes with that damn season. I need the likes. So like it up. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already done so to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified to all future content of yours truly. It's going to be a lot of stuff coming up. I have some pickups. I have some different stuff in the Life series I have to do. I'm going to do redo this where I show all the jerseys on all, a rack of videos. So that will be coming soon too. So rest assured there's going to be plenty of content from yours truly. And I will see you all in the next video. So you all take care and enjoy the rest of the playoffs. And for the teams that are still alive, good luck to all of you. Hope one of your fan bases is going to be happy at the end. So if it's your fan base, okay, enjoy it, live it up. For me, we're in the off season now, so we have to see what happens. But thank you all for joining me in on another crazy season for the Eagles, and I'll be back again soon with some other series here on the channel. All right, everyone, take care. I've yapped on enough. I got an hour 22 minutes. I had a lot to say. All right, everyone, take care.